growing?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can start, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much, Marlene.
Welcome.
Welcome to us, Dr. Oraib Rantawi. I mean, I'm very happy finally to talk about Jordan. We really don't do this often enough, and I really regret it. And I am more than happy to welcome the best possible person for that. So I welcome all of you. I don't see you, dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. Oraib Rantawi, whom you see here, is the founder and director general of the Amman-based Al-Quds Center for Political Studies, a think tank. And he's also a writer and a columnist and commentator and analyst also on television. And he has produced also his own political show, Qadaya wal Ahdath, issues and news, no? And events. And he's a frequent guest in all important conferences and has edited and written strategic studies. So he's just the right person to welcome here to talk on the subject of Jordan, because he's an insider, but he's also a scholar. What is needed for analysis. I don't have to introduce our topic of today. It's Jordan's role in a region which has changed very much, I mean, significantly during the last years. I mean, for example, some years ago, I never would have imagined that the relationship between Amman and Washington would be matter for speculations and discussions. No? Jordan has always been one of the most important pillars of US policies in the region, and it completely indispensable for security and for security of Israel also, and an important player in everything regarding US relations with the Palestinians. And however, I don't have to tell you, when the US government of Donald Trump sponsored the Abraham Accords with first United Arab Emirates and then others following, without consulting Amman, as I understand, some question marks appeared, and it's surprising that these question marks have not disappeared with the change of administration. We will talk about that and more. How does the region and what's going on look from Amman? How are relations with other Arab countries? I mean, some very new and surprising players, and how are relations with Israel, and how does Amman see the future of Palestinians? And also, we have to say, amid growing concerns for security and stability. So I welcome you again, and we are very keen to listen to you, Dr. Oraib. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me tonight to talk with the distinguished participants in this panel. Thank you, Dr. Gordon, for this opportunity. Thanks also to Bruno Kreisky Forum, this distinguished think tank that played a serious role, not only in Europe, but also in the Middle East. And I was lucky to visit the forum and to join the Palestinian Strategic Task Force years ago before the pandemic. And it's good again to engage with the Bruno Kreisky Forum. To make the long story short, it is a very long and complicated story talking about the Jordanian geopolitical and the strategic role in this part of the world. I want to really point out some major questions and some major answers related to this particular topic. The question: what are the main sources of power that enable Jordan to play a geopolitical and strategic role in this region? It's first, this strategic alliance with the West in general, with the US in particular, since the mid-50s. Jordan is a strategic, a credible alliance, reliable alliance to the United States. That was one of the main sources of power that enabled Jordan to be active in the region. Secondly, Jordan's strong ties, strategic ties with the Gulf states. Geopolitics gave Jordan a privilege of being a buffer zone between Israel and the oil. Those two major interests for the West in the region. The most important interest is Israel and the oil, to be frank. Of course, there is, among others, but those are the main top priorities when it comes to the American strategy, Western strategies in this part of the world. The strategic ties between Jordan and the Gulf state, it was a very strong asset for Jordan in the previous decades. And I can tell since the beginning of 50s, Jordan was of great importance for many of the Gulf states, even before those states took independence, beginning of the 70s, like, for example, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and some others. The third major and important asset for Jordan, Jordan is considered worldwide as an oasis for stability and security in unstable region, in the unstable Middle East. Jordan maintain domestic security and stability, coherence. We can say that we have a functional state for years and decades that succeed to provide services to its citizens, education, healthcare, infrastructure, skilled laborers, and that was really in a country with a very limited resources, that was enabling Jordan through the years and decades to play a major role in this region. It is important to notice that the establishment of the Jordanian state beginning of this 100 years ago, beginning of the previous century, was coincided with the Palestinian cause after Balfour Declaration, before that after Sykes-Picot agreement. Therefore, from day one, Jordan finds itself very much attached to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Jordan was part of the Arab-Israeli conflict as well. Jordan was considered for years that the most moderate Arab country that established strong ties with Israel before the peace treaty and after the peace treaty. And the Jordanian stability and security considered from the Western point of view as part of the Israeli stability and security. Jordan's security stability was very much important to maintain the stability and security in Israel, since we have hosting the biggest portion of the Palestinian refugees. More than 40% of the Palestinian refugees were hosted in Jordan. Secondly, we have the longest border with Israel. That was also another major factor that attract the attention from Western countries, in particular to Jordan and to Jordan's stability, prosperity, security, and that's why Jordan played such an important role. I will take every factor from this and shed some light how the new dynamics in the region, in the international and regional relation, affect and impacted these factors that created this Jordanian geopolitical role in the past, the present, and will shape the Jordanian role in the future. First of all, let us start by Jordan and the Gulf states. Historically speaking, Jordan has three major powers that succeed, help him to play a very important role in the Gulf states and to balance this bilateral relationship between a small and poor country with a very rich and big countries like the Gulf state. First of all, we provide during the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, a very serious military and security assistance to the Gulf states. We joined the war in Yemen during the Nasser era. We supported Oman when there was a rebellion there. We were in Bahrain in many occasions. We were in Saudi Arabia in many occasions to help them dealing with serious domestic challenges, security challenges there. Therefore, Jordan really has a very major role, and his role was very much needed by the Gulf states. We are also contributing to establish the new emerged army security apparatus in the Gulf states. We are there all the time. This is changed now. Now, with the Gulf gaining more power, more influence, more oil revenues, playing a major role not only in the region but worldwide. When the Gulf start having the most sophisticated weapons, training, advisors, expertise from the West, they can buy the best weapons money can buy, you see. Now, if you see the gap, you will find now that they are not in the same bad need for the Jordanian help in this field. Looking to the Gulf states, you will find military bases almost for all the superpowers in the region. This is one important dimension in the relationship between Jordan and the Gulf states. Secondly, during in the last 5-6 years, especially under Trump administration and with the Abraham Accords, and before that, to be frank, and before signing the Abraham Accords, there were direct contacts and relationship between the Gulf state and Israel. And this theory about buffer zone is not valid anymore, and it's not required by the Israelis or by the Gulf states as well. Therefore, Jordan was the host of these secret meetings between Gulf and Israel, exchanging messages, delivering messages from here and there, keeping things under control in a way or another. Is not needed anymore. Now there is a direct flights from many Gulf states, direct to Israel. They have meetings in front of the cameras of the media and the press. Therefore, I think we reach a point where we need some help from Gulf state to solve some problems with Israel. The other way around. Before that, we are the mediator. We are the broker in any kind of deals. Now I think if not happen yet, I think the time is coming soon when we see, for example, some Arab Emirates in the Gulf states mediate in a certain issues, outstanding issues between Jordan and Israel. This is a new dynamic in the relationship. The third source of power when it comes to our relation with the Gulf is the Jordanian skilled labor, doctors, nurses, school teachers, who succeed really to facilitate and to help creation of all these sectors in many Gulf states, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, and others. Now, I think in the last 20 years, I think we are left behind the Gulf states. They have better universities. Almost most of the prestigious universities worldwide, they have branches in the Gulf states. They are trying to nationalize the labor in their market. They are not anymore in that bad need. And now there is India, there is Asian countries who can send the more skillful, even labor, cheaper labor as well. Therefore, I think all these dynamics that shape the bilateral relationship between Jordan and the 6 members of the monarchic club in the Gulf states is totally changed. Therefore, I think we saw slow down in the bilateral relationship between Jordan and the Gulf. Jordan needs 3 things from the Gulf: direct foreign assistance to our budget, direct foreign investment in our economy, which is in a very bad shape those days and in the past 10 years maybe. Third, we need the remittance from the Jordanian workers in the Gulf states. Now there is no financial assistance, direct financial assistance to our budget. Secondly, the investment from the Gulf is getting less and less, because maybe they find another attractive markets for investment. What remain now is the Jordanian workers in the Gulf and their remittance that support our economy in a way or another, and it is not increasing, it is decreasing slowly, and the number is limited now. It's not as it used to be an open market for the Jordanian labor and the new generations, and that's why the unemployment in Jordan jumped to more than 25%, and especially among the young generation and the youth in particular, fresh graduates, it's more than 50%, which is a horrible percentage for a country, for any country in the world, especially in a country with lack of resources like Jordan. Therefore, these dynamics in the relationship between Jordan and the Gulf states is changed, and that has a very direct impact in the Jordan regional role when it comes to the Gulf. When it comes to the Israel, and this is the second dimension, which is very much important, Israel is systematically shifting toward far right, religious far right, and the nationalist far right. And Israel today is not the same that we signed the peace treaty with it in 1994 and before that. Jordan has no influence anymore within the Israeli ruling elites now. Now, I think what is missing in the analysis of the Western researchers, scholars, and even diplomats, they didn't witness carefully what's going on in Israel. Israel, now the religious group, the fundamentalist group, the most extremist group, the settlers lobby in Israel are playing a dominant role in the Israeli political spectrum. They are the hegemon majority in the Knesset. That you can ask why you have a minority governments in Israel if they are the majority in the Knesset. They are divided around Netanyahu, not around the platform or about ideology or about the Palestinian cause or Iran or any of these issues. They are united around all these issues. The main factor of divide within the right-wing camp in Israel is Netanyahu himself and his performance and his personality and his attitudes toward the institution, toward democracy, toward the Supreme Court, towards this is the same debate in many countries where populists have the upper hand, like for example Trump era in the United States and Bolsonaro in Brazil, even Modi in India. You see, we have the same debate. In Israel, it's the same debate. Now the competition in the upcoming election after a week in Israel between right and right, between right and far right. This is the competition because the peace camp or the left movement in Israel now is only around 10 seats in 120 seats. There is another 10 seats for the Arab parties. And the rest, you can say they are varied from right to far right in Israel. This is the composition of the Israeli Knesset. With this shifting, the priorities of Israel is also shifting. Now the priority is to annex more territories of the Palestinian occupied West Bank and Jerusalem. This is the top priority. Whether it will impact negatively Jordan or not, whether this will damage the bilateral relationship between Israel and Jordan or not, they behave as if Jordan is totally separated from the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause. And by signing the peace treaty 1994, Jordan is taken for granted. We solved the problems between the two countries, and this is our own business to deal with the Palestinian. This is the approach there. And for the far right in particular, they believe that West Bank is Judea and Samaria, and the Palestinian and the the Jewish Israelis are already did the concessions to the Arabs by accepting Jordan as independent state, because from their own belief, Jordan is part of the promised land for the Jewish people. Therefore, I think this is discussed in Israel. And when you see the T-shirts of those extremists who violated Al-Aqsa Mosque, where they printed on their backs a map for Israel, including Jordan, this sent a very bad message to Jordan, whether to the ruling elite or to the public opinion at large. Things is different. Israel is changing. There is no enough room for better understanding between the two countries. We understand that Israel is showing more tolerance to any final status solution for the Palestinian cause, even if it hurt Jordan or touches its top priorities in any final status solution. Therefore, there is a great deal of concern about where Israel is heading from here. What is the consequence of this on the Palestinian cause, on the two-state solution, and stability and security in the West Bank, impact and implications on Jordan, spill over to Jordan. This is not the issues, the type of issues that the Israelis are discussed or even listen when we raise these issues to them. Look, the way they deal with the Hashemite custodianship in Al-Aqsa Mosque. Actually, there is no custodianship those days. They deteriorate the situation there. They don't respect the historical and legal status of this, despite all the agreements signed between Jordan and Israel, the international law. This is really a main source of concern among the government, the public opinion, the ruling elite in the country, that where is the question, where Israel is heading from here, and what about what next after the two-state solution, because there is a deep belief here that there is no chance anymore to see a two-state solution being implemented between both parties, because there is no Israeli partner in this process, and they're under this hegemon influence of religious group, settlers lobby in Israel. We saw that Israel is destroying systematically the possibility to have a Palestinian viable state. Of course, under Netanyahu, it was the worst timing in the Jordanian-Israeli relationship. But we have Lapid, and before Lapid, we have Naftali Bennett as Prime Minister of Israel. The same policies, but very nice words, very nice statement toward Jordan, very public, very good, well-articulated PR campaigns. But when it comes on the ground, the number of the violation in Al-Aqsa Mosque under Naftali Bennett and Lapid are increased more than what used to happen under Netanyahu. The territories, the lands, annexation, the houses demolishes, the settlement enlargement is doubled comparing with Netanyahu era. On the ground, things getting even worse. But they used a different speech than Netanyahu. This is the only difference that we touch that we touch on the ground. Nothing seriously changed in this matter. And now, a week before the elections, we can imagine also the returning of Netanyahu to power. So far, the polls and surveys suggested that he has a chance to create a government again and to be the majority in the Knesset and to succeed to build a coalition and to resume business as usual. With Netanyahu, there were even no communication in the political level between the two countries. It's only on the security, military, intelligence level, but in the political level, there were no communication, no chemistry between the Jordanian leadership and the Israeli leadership under Netanyahu. Same policies and even worse now under Lapid and Naftali Bennett, but at least there is some communication, visits, meetings, summits here and there. That's the only difference that we can see. The main source of concern for Jordan from this, Jordan defined its interest, top interest in a final status solution for the Palestinian cause by saying that the Palestinian viable state is a Jordanian top national interest, because this makes Palestine, Palestine, and Jordan is Jordan. This is the slogan raised by King Abdullah II when he came first to power 23 years ago. Jordan is Jordan, Palestine is Palestine. And this is a relaxing slogan for Palestinians and Jordanian. Whether in the domestic level between Jordanian and Jordanian of Palestinian origin, or the Jordan government and the Palestinian National Authority. That one. But we saw this scenario collapse, this option collapse. What next? Israel is totally, and there is a consensus among the Israeli political experts not to go for a one-state solution. What is the other option if there is no one state or no two states? What is the third option in this case? Chaotic situation in the West Bank, radicalization of the Palestinian movement, reviving of these old thoughts in the Zionist right movement about Jordan being a Palestine. Therefore, there is great worries and concerns, especially among the public, not only the Palestinian in Jordan, this is the stereotype in the West, but also among the East Jordanian, the Jordanian tribes as well, that the Jordanian entity, the Jordanian state, the Jordanian identity is under a risk because the Israelis systematically damage the two-state scenario, the two-state option as a solution for the Palestinian cause. Therefore, there is a deep belief among the public and among the different stakeholders that the worst in our relationship with Israel is yet to come. It's not behind our back, because we need to see how Israel will deal with the Palestinians and what is the aftermath of the collapse of the two-state solution. And Jordan will be the first to be impacted by such a scenario. The third pillar I want to talk about it is the Jordanian-American relationship. Also, there is a new shifting in the paradigm. When Trump came to power and designed what's so-called the deal of the century, they even didn't consult or inform Jordan about what they are thinking about. When they moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, they even didn't inform Jordan, not consult with Jordan about that. When Trump talked about the regional framework for the Palestinian final solution, he thought about Emirates and Saudi Arabia. He didn't think about Jordan and Egypt, with those countries used to be the historical player in the Palestinian issues and to be consulted. And historically, they are the regional framework when it comes to the Palestinian issues, all issues in general, whether domestic issues or Palestinian-Israeli dynamics. Totally, the administration ignored Jordan and Egypt and put a lot of emphasis and the focus on the role of Saudi Arabia and the role of Emirates in this. And when they launched this Abraham Accord, they also ignored the Arab Peace Initiative and the Jordanian stance. Let us go for a Palestinian state. Let us at least open a horizon for a political path, a negotiation track, and then we can go for a full normalization process with Israel. But that wasn't the case under Trump administration. There were a deep belief in Jordan under Trump, that the United States also is willing to be more tolerance toward any collateral damage to Jordan and to the Jordanian top national interest with this design for a final status solution. They don't care about what is the impact of this on Jordan and how this will affect, in a way or another, the Jordanian national interest in this solution. Therefore, Jerusalem, in particular, Jerusalem, when you recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, what about the Hashemite role in this city? What's about the international law? What about the legal and historical situation of the city? All these items have been ignored totally by the team who designed the deal of the century and push forward what's so-called Abraham Accord. Therefore, for the first time since the mid of 50s, the Jordanian-American relationship was very bad and worrying and concerned, and people start talking friendship to the United States is costly more than taking the United States as an enemy. If they do this with their friends, who needs an enemy anymore in this issue? That's why I think Jordan faces a very serious trouble under Trump administration, and there is a serious setback in the Jordanian regional and strategic role in the region. What was remaining from the Jordanian role in this part of the world, and that was the justification of the continuation of the American support to Jordan, even under Trump, was the Jordanian role in the war against terrorism. Jordan is an active player, not only in the domestic level, in the regional level at large. Jordan play a worldwide role combating terrorism, from Aqaba track dealing with terrorism in Africa, to Afghanistan, to North Syria, North Iraq, ISIS, Qaeda, Zarqawi, all these successive waves of terrorist groups that we're facing in the last 20 years or so, since September 11 in particular. Therefore, this role is very much required, very much needed by Western at large, countries at large, and by the United States in particular. And that was how we explain how come the Trump administration continue supporting Jordan, while in other fields of interest like the Palestinian field, they are totally allied themselves to the far right in Israel, not to Israel, to the far right in Israel. That was the difference, and what we mean by saying there is a paradigm shift in the American approach toward the Palestinian cause and its implications in Jordan. Now things start, we have this new administration with a different discourse. They come up with promises during the campaign, election campaigns and the aftermath. But so far, watching carefully what the administration is doing, a lot of talks and less of achievements. They didn't fulfill many, if not all, of their promises. Okay, with UNRWA, we are fine. They are start giving support to UNRWA. They are start talking with the BNA, which is good, in a way or another. But they promised to reverse the decision about to open a consulate, at least in East Jerusalem, to open the BLO office in Washington, D.C., to open a horizon, political horizon between the two parties. When Biden came to the region, he told Abu Mazen Mahmoud Abbas that don't think the two-state solution is coming soon, and they showed lack of interest really to invest too much to pave the way for a political solution and negotiation between both sides. The American strategy now, Biden administration's strategy now in Palestine is working in two tracks, with Gaza maintaining the truce between Hamas and Israel. In the West Bank, trust building or confident building measures between the PA and Israel by under the same formula that Benny Gantz and Lapid used to talk about it: security for economy. We can give you some economic privileges. In return, we need more efforts to maintain security and stability in both Gaza and West Bank. But what about politics? What about negotiation? What about final status solution? Neither the Israelis nor the Americans are in this line. And this is lead to the current situation in West Bank, where we see a more violent, we see more Israeli violations, we see more resistance from the Palestinian side. from the beginning of this year up to date, 177 Palestinians lost their lives, killed in the streets by the Israeli settlers and the Israeli soldiers. And this deterioration of the situation in the West Bank will have a direct impact. And it starts fueling the anger of the Jordanians. Again, when I say Jordanians, I not mean only the Jordanian or Palestinian origin, but also all the Jordanians. Yani. You see, this is for Jordan as another source of concern and instability on this field. Now we are about weeks from the American midterm elections, and also the ghost of Trump is hanging there, and we don't rule out the scenario where Trump would return back to power, or any Trumpian came back to power with his own agenda about these issues. Therefore, I think Jordan supposed to think deeply about Netanyahu back to power, Trump or another Trumpian in the White House. But again, it's not about the persons. The policies are the same. Different approaches, different talks, different discourse. But when you talk about policy, between Trump and Biden when it comes to the Palestinian issue, and between Netanyahu and Lapid when it comes also to the Palestinian-Jordanian issues in this field. Among this complicated situation, Jordan was trapped in the last decade, the Arab Spring decade, between these conflicting axes in the region, Iran and its allies, Turkey and its allies, the Gulf states, and their allies. And the good news for Jordan in the last 2 years that there is a sort of a fluidity between these conflicting axes in the region. We saw a new rapprochement by Turkey towards Israel, towards the Gulf states, Egypt, after years of conflicts and war by proxy. We see new rapprochement from the Gulf states toward Iran as well, and opening up between Emirates and Iran, 5 rounds of talks between Saudi Arabia and Iran in Baghdad. And the 6th one is on hold for certain circumstances in Iran. And we saw a new rapprochement now between the different conflicting. This is a relaxing news for Jordan, because Jordan don't want to see himself trapped between these conflicting axes. But so far, we didn't maintain any serious relation with Iran, despite we don't have a bilateral issues with Iran, but because of the Gulf states, we are supporting the Gulf states in this conflict in general. With Turkey, we still have our worries and concern about their support to Muslim brothers in the Arab world. Now things change. Things is getting more relaxing in the bilateral relationship. But so far, I don't believe that there will be unexpected breakthrough in our bilateral relationship with those two regional powers. Talking about the buffer zone between Israel and the oil doesn't mean that it is buffer zone is limited to Israel and the Gulf. Buffer zone also applied when it comes to the relationship between the interstate dynamics between Arab countries, Syria, Iraq on the one hand, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. We are in the middle of this map. With Syria and Iraq, they are trapped in the last 10 or more years. Iraq maybe the 30 years, Iraq, in civil wars, in conflicting conflicts with their neighbors. And all our projects, promising projects with Iraq that may bring some fruitful results to the Jordanian economy was attached to Mustafa al-Kadhimi. There is no strong cautions for Jordan in the Iraqi political spectrum. No strong allies for Jordan within the Shiite community or the Kurdish community or the Sunni community as well, not only the Shiite community. And I think partially it's our own mistake, because we were the first to criticize what's so-called the Shiite crescent, and we lost the trust and confidence by most of the Shiite groups. With the Sunnite, there is a competition. Yeah, there is another Sunnite countries in the region who have influence more than the Jordan among the Sunnite in Iraq, Turkey, Qatar, Emirates, Saudi Arabia. Same apply to the Kurds as well. Therefore, we don't have serious cautions when it comes to the Iraq and our bilateral relation. But still, we have a normal relation, but to the minimum level. Doesn't meet our expectations, and it doesn't meet the objective of what's so-called the new Sham initiative, the new Levant initiative launched by Kazemi of Iraq, and they bring together Jordan, Egypt, and Iraq as a new axis in the region. With Syria, we face this serious problem, and Iraq when it comes to terrorism, ISIS country. Now, this threat replaced by another kind of a threat, came from the north, the drug smuggling. There is a drug war against Jordan, which is a systematic process supported by branches of the regime, some militias as well. It is a very well organized crime, a huge business targeting Jordan as a transit country to the Gulf states, but recently targeting Jordan as a destination as well for the drugs smuggling. Therefore, despite the Jordanian new rapprochement with Syria, we didn't so far succeed to make this dispute around the drug issue, and also because of the Caesar law, which imposed sanctions, cultivating a seriousness with Syria. Now, Kazmi will not remain in power, supported by the Iranians, and without solving the problem with Iran, I don't think there would be a breakthrough in our bilateral relation with Iraq as well. It goes without saying, by saying this. Therefore, I think there is a very serious limitations when it comes to resuming a Jordanian geopolitical and strategic role. We feel that we lost many of our cards. There's a new dynamics, new requirements, new priorities for the major players, regional and international players. Geography is still the same geography. Demography is still the same demography in Jordan. But what has changed is the attitude of the different stakeholders, different regional and international players. And this is subject also to further changes in the future. And we will see, and we need to watch carefully what will happen in Israel, what will happen in the United States. There is two game changers. We are waiting to see how they will be ended. The first game changer, Vienna track, the nuclear deal with Iran, and what its impact in the Iranian role in the region, and how it will impact the Saudi-Iranian dialogue. This is a game changer, and I think both tracks are linked to each other. I don't bilateral relation if there is no deal in Vienna, but if there is a deal, I think this will accelerate the progress in the dialogue between the two countries. This is a game changer. The other game changer, how this war in Europe will end up with. So far, it has terrible consequences when it comes to the food and energy, and we are impacted seriously by this. But I think the most important consequence of this war is not clear yet, because we are still from the end of this conflict. Even if there is a ceasefire, we don't know how the relationship between the superpowers will be shaped and reshaped after that. and what kind of world order we will end it up with. I will stop here, and I don't know how long it takes. I'm sorry if I take a long time, but this is a brief discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You are right. I mean, it's brief. You could go on and on and on, and there are still so many things to talk about. But I mean, we already don't know where to start, and I allow myself to start with questions to you. I mean, what I wonder all the time. Of course, you described the relationship with Israel and the changes there, and also I think the interests are quite clear. But how would you describe the interests of the Gulf states? I mean, especially Saudi Arabia and I mean, Emirates as the first country the Abraham Accords were concluded with. I mean, the interests or the visions for the future of the West Bank. I think Jordan's role should be. How much does it have to do with Jerusalem? Of course, you mentioned the Hashemite custodianship in Jerusalem. Also, do they want to take something away from Jordan? And it's also interesting because you mentioned the Arab Peace Initiative. Perhaps we should explain it to, perhaps not everybody remembers. It was in 2002, the peace proposal at the meeting of the Arab League in Beirut, no? Which said more or less, I mean, a state against full peace. And is it not important for Saudi Arabia anymore? So what's their position?
Look, first of all, I think the Saudi top priorities is changing. When MBS take power in Saudi Arabia and become the strongest man in the country, it's changed. And I think they pay less attention to the Palestinian cause. They even didn't talk with the Palestinians directly. They didn't invite Abbas to Saudi Arabia. They didn't maintain regular meetings with any Palestinian groups. They put Hamas as a terrorist group in their list. Therefore, they show lack of interest. But officially, in the public meetings, in the Arab League, in international meetings, they keep.
And especially King Salman insists, no?
They still talk about the Arab Peace Initiative, but without really any efforts to promote this initiative or to make it, pave the way for this. And they show less interest. They are involved in almost 8 years war in Yemen, and it's an endless war so far. Even the truce that reached by the Jens Grundberg recently finished October the 2nd. They didn't go to war to resume war again, but at least there is no truce officially now in Yemen. Therefore, this is one. And I think the Saudi leaders now are more obsessed with the domestic challenges, with this new Vision 2030. And even the next summit, in Arab League summit in Algeria, they will send the foreign minister there instead of the king or the crown prince. And they justify this by health issues for both of them. I can understand for King Salman, but for the crown prince, it is really something shocking news, that he couldn't travel because of health issues. But my understanding of this, that they don't want to involve deeply in this politics. Let me draw your attention to another phenomenon. In the last 6, 7, 8 months, there is a series of summits in the region, in Jordan, Aqaba, in Sharm el-Sheikh, in Negev, in many places. The Saudis were not there at all. As if the issues discussed in these are not relevant to them, which is mainly about Iran, about Palestine, about. I think they want, they are following a very different approach, comparing with the past. The competition with the Hashemites, maybe in the custodianship issue of Al-Aqsa Mosque, there were a lot of talks about this issue, but we didn't see on the ground that there is a serious steps taken by the Saudis to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And to be frank with you, I think there is no need for a competition because the custodianships there is for the Israelis, not for any other country or Muslim. It is the Israelis who keep saying that Jerusalem is the sovereign capital of Israel and nobody have to play a role there. They can give some cosmetic role to put a carpet here, to hang a curtain there, but this is not the custodian ship that should be played by any Arab or a Muslim country. Therefore, there is no interest like before. Even Turkey was part of this competition, but not anymore now, because they knew that it is a costly custodianship role. It's an embarrassing one. Israel will leave no room for the custodians to play in this holy shrine. Therefore, I think they lost their empathy to compete in this track. But yes, the major issue that they show lack of interest on the Palestinian issue. Why they, and even they start to a certain extent, a certain level of normalization with Israel. They are not part of Accord, Abraham Accords, but around Tirana and Sanafir Islands, in the Gulf of Aqaba, they have agreement with Israel. They hold, they're responsible now about all the Egyptian obligation in these islands based on Camp David, peace treaty. They opened the space for the Israeli civil aviation to travel to Asia and other parts of the world freely through the Saudi space. You see, there is a certain level of normalization. There is a talks about security, also coordination in certain issues, especially in technology and softwares and all this stuff. But for the Emirates, I think they want to balance the influence of Turkey and Iran during the last years in the region by consolidating relation with Israel. And for the Emiratis, the relation with Israel is a gateway to the United States and to get the F-35 air fighters, the best air fighter so far, but and it's also important for them from an economic point of view. They have, they are thinking about economy in this issue, security. And the first anti-air system is made by Israel was deployed in Emirates just a few days ago against these drones and air-to-air, land-to-land missiles and all these things. Again, the Palestinian cause is not on the top priority of many, if not all, the Gulf states. Still valid in Kuwait, in Oman, maybe, but in Bahrain. I'm talking about governments, not the public. The public is a different story.
Well, we don't know in a way what the public thinks.
There is a survey, Gordon. There is a survey showing that vast majority of the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Bahrain, is fair majority are against normalization. They are supportive of Palestine. And this survey is made by Washington Institute, not by a Palestinian Institute or a Qatari Institute or something like that. No, when it comes to the public opinion, I think it's a different story. But I think this is not reflected in the priorities of the governments of those countries.
Well, isn't it amazing, because you mentioned now, I mean, military equipment, military strength, and also in your talk you mentioned that also this role, in a way, the famous Arab army. I mean, it's a myth. regional, this was taken away with this role from Jordan. But isn't it amazing then, if we talk about Yemen, that 7.5 years after the start of the war, this military strength of Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, I mean, led to nowhere. They cannot handle this group of rebels. I mean, it's, of course, they are much more, but and have also outside help, we have to say.
Look, it's a failure story, and for what's called the decisive storm, and this is the name they gave to the war against Yemen 7-8 years ago. And I think they didn't learn much lessons from the history. The Ottoman Empire sent 5 armies to Yemen. None of them returned back home. None of them. That was more than 150 or 200 years ago. Nasser, with all the power he used to have, all this, the war in Yemen was the reason behind his defeat in June War 1967, because it was a mess at that time. Yemen is a different story. Even the British, they have the mandate on Yemen. They were only in Aden, not more. A small portion of Aden. They couldn't go inside the country and rule the whole country in particular. They didn't learn enough from the lessons of history. This way, despite many advised them not to go for a war in Yemen. And instead of spending all this money on the war, you can spend half of it in development, and you will see the whole Yemenis very supportive to you. And I couldn't see, now they are in a very bad need to go out of this war, but they need a ladder that keep the faces, their faces, because they claim victory after 2-3 weeks of the war, but we saw the war move to inside Saudi Arabia, and also attack Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Therefore, I think this is a grave mistake made. Now they are desperately seeking a way out of it, but since it is linked with MBS personally, this war, he wants to come out of it, keeping his faith. Otherwise, this will impact his role inside the Saudi Arabia, with his opponent in the family, with his opponent in the Saudi Arabia, and he still have, you see. Of course, he have now, succeed to destroy every single, opposition to his influence and power. But still, in a situation like this, this will revive, the voices that calling, to hold MBS accountable about what he did in Yemen, inside the royal family in Saudi Arabia. Therefore, I think the issue is how to come up with a deal that keep his face and give Houthis what they want as well, because nobody can ignore them. They are ruling the whole north of Yemen, now. And they prove that they are a major player in the scene. In Yemen now, we are talking about 2-3 major forces on the ground. It's the Houthis, number 1. It is still the Muslim Brothers, number 2, which is working under the legitimate government umbrella, and the separationists in the south, on the other hand. Those are now the components, and I think Yemen will not retain one piece again. And they will be lucky if they have 2 states only, because they may go for 5-6 states, divided to 5-6 states, especially after the recent reports published yesterday that there is a huge reserves of oil in Yemen, maybe more than many of the Gulf states.
Very interesting. I didn't hear that.
Just yesterday, there is intelligence informations suggesting that Yemen is having a very huge.
And where?
Sorry?
Where is it?
I don't know about the details where, but I think watch the war, the oil wells, and you will draw the map of Yemen. The next map of Yemen will be shaped by the location of this oil fortune in the future. It is still an ongoing conflict and humanitarian disaster at the same time, but without any serious horizon to reach a solution. What is interested for the United States is to keep the truce, to maintain the truce, keep the situation calm down. This is not an approach. This will not to lead. This will lead to nowhere. If you succeed for a while to capitalize in the humanitarian crisis there, the humanitarian needs there, this will last for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and then you will have the explosion coming. But I think Biden administration doesn't care about that. They want to spend the rest of their term in power in peace in this region, because they want to focus more in Ukraine, Russia.
Exactly, yeah.
This is their top priority, nothing else.
Yes, I think also that many things changed also with this war in Ukraine. They just are overstretched, I mean, in politically.
For that, Gordon, I think the lack of interest of the Middle East, or the decreasing interest in the Middle East, is a strategy started since Obama.
But this decreasing interest has also something to do with less importance of oil. I mean, they don't need the...
This is another dimension, and the rising of China, of Russia, and I joined a meeting for the NATO in Italy during Obama administration, where there is a hot discussion between Europeans and Americans about the NATO and the top priorities and the top threats, and what the Americans are planning to do with the NATO, with their presence in the Middle East, in Europe, how they will tackle China, Russia in the future. There is a serious dispute about that. But now we have Ukraine, and this make it even worse.
Well, it's late, but I have to ask you this question because I really, I don't know it really. You mentioned the Arab League summit, the upcoming Arab League summit, and in Algeria. And of course, we had this talk already since 1 year, 2 years even, without any outcome of serious role in the future, and of Syria perhaps even coming back to the Arab League. And so, because we should mention that the membership of Syria was frozen in 2012 by the Arab League. So what's the Jordanian position on that? How does Jordan, does the Jordanian government, what do they think would be good to do with Syria? I mean, I think also Bashar al-Assad had already better nights than today, with Russia militarily overstretched and this turmoil in Iran, and even talk that some militias are going back to Iran to fight the own people, the protesters. So what Jordan and Syria, please?
King Abdullah II, during his first summit with Biden, he submitted a Jordanian non-paper to the American administration about Syria. The paper was analyzing the current situation in Syria. No peace process, no military solution, a horrible status quo that will lead to a chaotic situation that will have a spillover in Lebanon, started in Lebanon. The crisis in Lebanon is, in a way, or a consequence to what's going on in Syria. This will have a direct impact. Nobody call for Assad change or regime change now anymore, contrary to what used to be happened during the last 10 years. What's the way out? Jordan is suffering too much, and Jordan wants to establish ties and to open borders and to exchange exports, imports, people go. The Jordanian paper submitted in the first summit with Biden. The king didn't get red line, but he didn't got a green line as well, maybe orange line from Biden about this. What we saw as a result of this, that these small businesses, small trade, it's okay. Nobody, they give a blind eye to it. The Americans, because even the companies who do such a business, they are not listed in the world market. They don't have accounts in the United States, in Wall Street. They don't have all these things. But look, for example, when we decided, both Jordan and Egypt and Lebanon, to send electricity and gas to Lebanon to help them dealing with the electricity problem there through Syria. Till now, we didn't get the permission from the United States because it's against Caesar law, you see. What does that supposed to mean? For Jordan, it's a good opportunity to export electricity. For Egypt also under heavy crisis, economic crisis, it's a good opportunity to sell some of their gas there, you see. But because of the Caesar law, they don't want to go far in this issue. And all the projects, all these meetings, all the agreements signed on this field has been frozen so far. And this accelerates the American efforts to conclude a deal, demarcation deal between Israel and Lebanon in the sea border. And maybe next Thursday they will sign it. And the Americans will tell the Lebanese that, come on, now you will have your own resources, you will have your own revenue, but forget about Syria. Therefore, the relationship between Jordan and Syria directly impacted by Caesar law. This is a very serious obstacle. In a minimum level, it's okay, but when it comes to a serious business, no, there is a rejection by Jordan with Egypt and Iraq. Agreed to have Syria back to the Arab League during the summits that they made. And they are supported by Emirates and by Bahrain and by some Arab Gulf states. It is only Qatar now and Saudi Arabia who raised a veto against the returning of Syria to the Arab League. Qatar, it is started 2012 up to date, no change in their policy towards Syria. The Saudis, they start a new rapprochement with Syria, but they stop it as a retaliation, if I may say, to the Iranian policies, with the Houthis, supporting the Houthis. And the Saudis in the dialogue with Iran try to bring Iran to help them in Yemen, and they refuse to facilitate any mediation or something like that. And in return, the Saudis decided to make the Iranian ally, best ally in the region, Assad, to make his life miserable. Therefore, they put this veto. But a year before, they were not in this mood. Now they changed. I think the Algerian diplomacy reached a conclusion that there is no chance for Syria to return back to the Arab League this time. Therefore, they pay more focus on the Palestinian reconciliation. And we have this Algeria declaration, which is an empty declaration, by the way, but it is just for a show and a sort of compensation for Algeria failing in returning Syria back to the Arab League. At least we have this Algeria declaration with the Palestinians, but I don't think that it is serious and promising initiative, and it will end it by signing the agreement, the declaration, not more.
Well, I mean, what you told us now, I think it shows so well what we are always saying. I mean, everything is linked to everything. Yeah. So Saudis, politics versus Syria linked with Houthis in Yemen.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The same conflicting parties in different areas, but they are the same. In Syria, they are the same. In Iraq, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Libya to a certain extent.
And by the way, I mean, not knowing what to do with Syria, it's not only an Arab problem. Also, we are in a way stuck, and we have to be realistic and say, if the war in Ukraine, as you also said, goes on and on and on, we perhaps will see major, humanitarian catastrophes everywhere, not only in Syria, but Lebanon, Yemen also. And then we'll see what we do. No, I mean, of course, the European fear of refugees and so on, but we are not able to do much. And
enough to feed. You
yeah,
have to take the action, and not to wait the United States. They are too far from the region. They are too far from the region. And I think Europe, when it's time for Europe to think in a different way. For the benefit or for the interest of the region here, and the Mediterranean, for Europe itself. For example, how many Ukrainian refugees go to the United States, comparing with the neighboring, with Poland, for example, with the European countries, Iraq refugees, Syrian refugees, and look to Iran situation. I don't know how these protests will be ended, but if there's a deterioration in the situation in Iran, I think this will be unimaginable. Tragedy.
Or humanitarian problems in Egypt also. I mean, there we are really talking about millions and millions.
Therefore, I think we need to think out of the box about it, and not to stuck behind the United States, because they have very different priorities, different interests as well.
But it's very, I mean, very difficult. And to be fair, also, we don't have Latin American migration from in Europe, so we have our neighbors.
If Trump return back, I think you will receive the first wave of Latin American refugees.
Well, yes. Well, I thank you so much. I mean, we could go on and on and on. I hope it will not be the last time I have the chance to talk to you. Because I mean, really, when I wrote down the number of 94 for the peace treaty between Israel and Jordan, my generation, we failed to understand that this is 28 years ago. No? It's really more than one generation, and for us, it's so we did not understand what was. Happening with the invasion of Iraq and all these things, the 2011, so many changes. It was such a different region.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more.
We are the Oslo generation, not you. You are younger, but I am the Oslo generation, and I'm stuck there in a way. So, dear Dr. Oraib, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here, and I hope to see you again. And thank you all for listening. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.